Alright, hello. I think things should be okay right now. You have to bear with me. Hello, welcome to the live stream. If this is, this is the first time that we're going live here. I'm not too sure how things are going to go. You have to bear with me because I've been wanting to do this for a while. I don't really know the proper ins and outs of everything. If you don't know, I do all my recording and stuff on a MacBook, and the MacBook does not have a fan in it. So long times of recording doesn't really work, but I've done a couple of test streams and stuff like that. And they've been alright. I went for an hour and a half yesterday. Things seem to be alright, so if there's any frame drops or anything, just let me know down in the chat. Matty, hello, nice to see you. Ishmael, hello. So we are going to go over some of the overhaul drafts that were over on Twitter that were sent in. If you haven't seen the tweet already, we were going to do a video on it, but there was like about 17-18 drafts or so, and the video would have been so long, so I thought if I'm going to do a live stream at any point, now is probably the best time to do it. So again, I just want to make sure everything's alright before we actually get into things. If you're watching this back after the live stream, hello, good to have you. Thank you for coming. But yeah, so hello to everyone in the chat that is watching. And yeah, so hopefully things go okay. Again, if there's any FPS drops or anything like that, just let me know, and I'll try to do my best to sort it out. But I can go over to Twitter right now, and we can maybe get started. Right. So yeah, you'll be able to see it in a minute. I'll show the stuff off in a wee sec. But there's literally so many overhaul drafts to go over. So this might be quite long. Again, if you're here on on the replay of the stream, you're lucky because you'll be able to skip through everything. But yeah, let me just quickly go on my profile. It's probably the quickest way to do things. Yeah, so 18 comments. Again, if this was in a video, it probably would have took way too long. I think I want to kind of... Another reason for doing this is because I wanted to kind of see what the kind of template everyone was going for as well, like who was getting picked most often. From having a quick scroll through, I'm seeing Van Dijk in so many drafts. I think that's literally the first, 4 out of the 5 out of the 6, 6 out of 8, 7 out of 9. Like Van Dijk seems to be very popular. Gross as well in pretty much every draft in here. Duncan Van Heck, one of them, seems to be pretty popular. I think the defence is the Brighton defence seems to be pretty popular despite only keeping 1 clean sheet, which is interesting. But yeah, Matty says I'm lagging a little bit. Yeah, right, okay, I can... Hopefully this is alright. I do... That is the way of checking the FPS. I just wave my hands a little bit. Ben, nice to see you. Rage Cage, nice to see you. You're welcome, thank you for watching them. Adam, hello. But yeah, I think I don't know. Again, if this is very laggy and stuff, it'll probably end up being the only stream that we end up doing. I do want to upgrade the computer at some point, and hopefully I can do a lot more live streams. I'd like to do deadline streams and stuff, and it's good because the likes of Sky, you can do a deadline stream on a Saturday or a Sunday. It doesn't really matter because the way the transfers work. So, like if for example, back when the Chelsea Spurs game happened, we had the 4 red cards on that Sunday when everyone was making transfers. I would have liked to have done a stream, just to kind of get everyone's thoughts and share my thoughts for transfers happening after the actual game week deadlines passed. So I would like to do that, but again, if this is very laggy and doesn't really work too well, then obviously we'll need to wait until I can get some upgrades done. But for now, I thought I might as well try it. Seems to be okay, and hopefully it lasts, which would be good. But yeah, I think we're going to start getting into some drafts now, because we are about 5 minutes in now. So again, hello to everyone who has joined in the last couple of minutes. It's good to have you here, and we'll start looking at some drafts. So again, in the comments in the chat, feel free just to put your own ideas in there. Again, if you're here and you want to get your team reviewed, just head over to this tweet here and pop it in the comments, and we'll get to it at some point in the stream. So we are looking at Dave's FPL Dan Dave. We're looking at Dan's team first, and he says, this is roughly my team with 9 million in the bank. If Haaland's fit, he'll be in for Pedro. If not, I'll have 2 games of Pedro and move to Haaland. Gross and Foden are my Salah and Son placeholders. Solanke can move to cover the single game days. Skipping Burnley and Luton at the moment, as I've got Pedro. So what do we all think of João Pedro? Obviously, he was in my differential team, my differentials video. I'm really considering him in one team, but at the same time, Dan's got Van Heek, Gross and Pedro in here. I think a few Brighton players could actually be pretty popular. I think right now I'm still on Gross as my favourite pick, but I do really like João Pedro. The only thing is now, with the fact that like Trent's out and stuff, a lot more people are going for Solanke, so I feel like the popular front three is going to be Solanke, Watkins and Haaland, and we're probably not going to see Pedro in too many drafts. And if you're going to be able to fit him in, I don't know, because obviously you can go for like Gross, Dunk, etc. to cover the captaincies instead of him, so it could be quite good. Again, Haaland in for Pedro makes sense. In terms of Foden, I don't know about Foden. I think for me, I'm not really interested in Foden, purely because I feel like every single time I put him in, he ends up doing nothing for weeks, and I feel like this is the prime opportunity for him to end up getting no game time. The fact that De Bruyne's back and Doku's back. So this is literally like one of those ones where in 3-4 weeks time everyone's like, why have we put Foden in our teams? Because now the attack is Doku, De Bruyne, Grealish and Haaland or whatever. Obviously Foden's been brilliant, but again I feel like that's always what happens. He always has a good 1 or 2 games, everyone brings him in, and then he just stops playing. So I don't know if he's going to be able to keep his position in there. I'm not too sure. Again, he does seem to be a very, very popular pick, but I think in terms of the City players, like, you're never going to captain him when like Haaland's available, and then you can always have Rodri as your backup anyway. So I think I might. I don't think I'm going to have him in my team or anything, but I do understand why people are going for him, because his form is brilliant right now. Rodri, Gross, and Palmer I think are going to be in every single team. So again, they're great picks. Van Heek I do like. Obviously he's a great enabler. Obviously Palmer is there, which is probably why you've got 9 million in the bank. Like, you don't really need Van Heek as an enabler because most people are going to have Palmer. But again, 9 million in the bank to move, Gross and Foden to Salah and Son. Again, it probably makes sense. You would assume that you need Gross for the captaincies, but if you've got Pedro and Van Heek there, he isn't needed as much. Solanke moving to cover the Palace Wolves single game days looks good. Skipping Burnley and Luton, what do we all think of skipping Burnley and Luton? Because I'm in one of the situations where I'm like, it's only one transfer, but then I don't want to repeat the Morgan Gibbs-White situation at the start of the season where he got like 4 points and then we all moved him on and it was a waste of a transfer off the bat. So for me, I'm on Trafford in one team and then I'm skipping it in the other team. But I think the fact that the game has been moved to the Friday makes it a lot more appealing, which is good. Sorry, I'm just going to quickly double check everything's running smooth. I think we're all good, which is right. We can move back to that. But yeah, I like this team. For me, again, I'm not too sure about Foden, but I totally understand why people are going for him. Next we have FPL Daniel's team. We can zoom in on this. He's starting with Trafford. Again, is that the same back line? Saliba, Van Dijk and Van Heck? It is. So this could be a pretty popular one. Saliba, Van Dijk, Van Heck, Saka, Palmer, Gross and Rodri. So the same three midfielders, except he's got Saka in here. And then we've got Watkins, Haaland and Nunez. Again, pretty template team. I think this defence is going to be very, very popular. Same with the midfield. Nunez is an interesting one. I don't know about him. Again, he's another one I probably wouldn't consider because he just hasn't been doing as well as we'd hoped that he has been. On a way with Salah away, is he going to be any better? I don't really know. Is he going to play now that Jota's back? Maybe. I don't know. He's a good differential, I suppose. What have you said? Saka and Salah Saka to Salah when he's back. Yeah, I think it's going to be quite popular. Sell the keeper after one game as well. Not too sure to who yet. I think again that's going to be pretty popular. Again, the team is fairly the team's fairly similar. I think every team is going to be pretty similar, with the same kind of players. But I do like Nunez as a differential. Personally, wouldn't have him, but again, like he picked up 2 assists in the FA Cup. It's definitely possible that he could do quite well. I don't know. I feel like I've been waiting all season for him to bang, and it's just not happened yet. So hopefully it does happen. Liverpool fixtures are okay. So if there's any time to do it, it's when Salah's not there. If there's any time for him to step up, it's now. But yeah, again, looks good. Another pretty template team. Chris, FPL Boyle. Again, another pretty similar team. The exact same midfield. Same attack with João Pedro in there. Porro, Van Dijk and Saliba. I think this might actually be like my exact team right now. Yeah, I genuinely think it is. Maybe Solanke over Pedro, but this is literally like exactly what I've got. Current draft, Saka and Pedro in as placeholders for Salah and Son. Might hold Trafford as an enabler, as he is cheap and will get saves and occasional clean sheets. If get Bowen instead of Son, if I can get Bowen instead of Son, would give scope to upgrade Trafford. Lots of transfers in the bank. I don't know how is everyone about keeping Trafford. Say you're starting with Kaminsky or Trafford. What are we all thinking about that? I feel like for me, the Burnley fixtures are really, really bad, and I'd rather just keep them for a game and then move them on. Hold on, I'll get the spreadsheet up because I wanna have a look at that. And see the Burnley fixtures. Have a quick look at chat. I don't want to rush right through this. I hope everyone's okay with that. I just want to make sure everything's okay. Have a quick look through the chat. Not noticing any lag. Good. That's the hope. Like João Pedro as a player, just not sure I'd ever captain him as he's been subbed on a lot with Europe coming in February too. Well, I think with like Mitoma and Adingra away, yeah, he probably I think he does start most games. But obviously Welbeck's back now from injury, so there is that potential that he doesn't, whether it's Welbeck or Ferguson. I do still like him as a pick. I do still think he could be fantastic. Because he's got the potential to score like 2 or 3 goals. We've seen that in the Cup, we've seen that at the start of the season. And he's on penalties, obviously. Yeah, I like Solanke as a differential. Yeah, he looks quite good. Who's more nailed, would you say? Dunk or Van Heck, given Brighton just kept a clean sheet without him, and Van Heck's 10 to 11 games on the bounce? Adam, I do still think it's Dunk. Yeah, they kept 1 clean sheet without him, but I don't think that's enough to drop the guy who's played every single game that is available. I think Dunk is probably the more nailed. But to be fair, I think obviously Webster is the one that's coming in if one of them is to be dropped. I do think it's probably Van Heck that is the more likely one. Dunk just is the better defender, and I don't think De Zerbi's going to look at 1 clean sheet and think let's drop him. Plus, obviously, Dunk gets much more passes, but it doesn't really matter when they're both picking up like 90 plus. It doesn't when you've only get like when they only need to hit 70. Matty's skipping the Burnley Luton game in both teams. Ben's also skipping. Don't like the sound of any player. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Trafford, Foster, Kaminsky, Bayer, maybe. Who else is there available? No one really, and I don't think any of them are that brilliant. I think it probably will be. I can't remember the poll. I think it might have been Paul McNulty's poll. He asked if you were skipping, and there was quite a lot of people skipping. I want to say it was like 36% at the time I seen it anyway. The majority of people did seem to be skipping that game. Luton have a better fixture run than Burnley, yeah. No, I think the only thing is Burnley have Burnley have more of a potential to do well on the single, but Luton obviously have more potential to do better over the course of the next 4 or 5 games. So I think I'd rather have a Burnley player. Whether it's Burnley or Luton, I would be picking a Burnley player and taking them straight out. I don't think I'd want anyone else after that. I did say I was going to get the spreadsheet, so let me quickly get that now. Dave, hello. How are we? It's good to have you. Yeah, so again, I've kind of moved this to the middle because I've had to crop everything. So Burnley games, you get the Luton game, then obviously they don't play here, and then we've got Man City, Liverpool and Arsenal straight after that, and you'd be talking minus points at that point. I think even if Trafford's getting saves, you would literally be looking at maybe like 4 or 5 goals, and you wouldn't be surprised if it was 4 or 5 goals from City, Liverpool or Arsenal. So you'd maybe be looking at like maximum like 5 points from all 4 of those games for Trafford. Obviously after that it looks quite good, but we're not going to be wanting them after that. Like if you're looking at other teams, like Fulham have good fixtures if you wanted Leno, City have good fixtures, United have good fixtures, Newcastle have decent fixtures or very good fixtures. Depends if they sign a new goalkeeper or not. For me, I think my favourite one here is Pickford, because his run's decent. He does have Liverpool, United and Brighton in there, but they're all counted as orange fixtures for some reason. Obviously once you make it through Aston Villa, Spurs and City, you do get the single game day against Crystal Palace there. So for me, I do like the Pickford one. And again, if you watch the one of the videos, I can't remember which one it was, I did have Pickford. Well, I did mention that Pickford was my pick, and he is now like the 4th highest goal scoring goalkeeper in the game. But I think there is a lot of better options than Trafford. So if you are going to go for Trafford, I'd be having him, then just transferring him straight out for someone else. Where's the Luton game? So here's Luton. Again, not ideal. Brighton, Newcastle, United, Liverpool, Villa. Could maybe get a clean sheet here against Sheffield. Other than that, I don't really see much else. So it'd probably be another one that I'd just be transferring straight out after that game if you were to go for him. What do we think? All in agreement with that? I do think I think Trafford's the best pick, and if you wanted to go for a big high ceiling, I'd be going for Lyle Foster, because at least this time he's not going to get sent off. Well, he might in that game, but he's not going to miss the game. I think Luton, Burnley, anything can happen. The goalkeeper slot's very open, so worth a punt, especially as pen saves are a lottery. But Luton also have a game in hand. Liverpool, Luton could move to early February. Tim says, I don't have many transfers, so I'm keeping a lot in the bank to get Salah back. Fair. Adam, Trafford could concede 1 against Luton, not get many saves, and then concede 6 to City. Yeah, that is the worry in it. I suppose that's the gamble. Prefer Kaminsky, as he's only a placeholder for Areola and Johnson or a Newcastle keeper. Yeah, makes sense. I think it's annoying. Of course, the one game that we've got like the two worst possible teams to have. Again, it just reminds me of the start of the season when Nottingham Forest and Sheffield, and the whole Morgan Gibbs White incident, and I don't know. When I was kind of reviewing all my transfers a couple of weeks ago, that was one thing I said. Like, you don't have to cover every single captaincy. It doesn't really matter. As long as you're kind of covered elsewhere. Just because it's two bad teams, I wouldn't be forcing a captain. I probably will end up captaining. I probably will end up going for Trafford in one team though, just in case. You are talking like we're saying 10 points a transfer, right? You're going for Trafford. It's 4 points, so the max you can miss out is 6 points, unless obviously Luton score like 3 goals. So the max you can miss out is 6 points. The max you can get is maybe Trafford with saves tier 2. I don't think you can really count a penalty save, so we're talking maybe 20 points. So you could either miss out on 10 if he does the best, and like missing out on 6 if he does the worst, if that makes sense. So I suppose it depends how risky you want to play things. Just Jackla, evening, nice to see you. Matty says I'm going for Rice over Saka, as I have done all season. I think, again, I'm the exact same. I don't want Saka in my team, but the amount of injuries and everything that's happening, I'd rather just start with Saka and then transfer him out. For example, if Haaland doesn't play on Saturday, you're getting a 2-for-0 with Saka, and then you can just transfer him out for Haaland's next game. Plus you can captain Saka. Even though I think Saliba's probably the better captain, even against like Palace, I'd be more willing to gamble on a Crystal Palace, an Arsenal clean sheet than Saka scoring 1 or 2 goals. I'm thinking of going for a Luton player and then swap him out for Haaland after 2 Luton games, as Haaland will miss Newcastle. If he does miss Newcastle, it makes sense to try just cover that captaincy. Again, I think there is loads of good options you can go for quite early on. But you just got to kind of remember the amount of transfers we're going to be using in February. Like, if you want Maddison back, if you want Son back, if you want Salah back, if you want Hwang for the single game day, that's 4 transfers right there. But there is there's so many. I think there is going to be quite a lot of transfers that we all will end up using. Right, let's jump back on some teams. FPL Bowen. Bowen's the only player missing who I know I'll want as soon as he's back, but he's out for now. See, again, Bowen's another one for a February transfer that we'll probably be wanting back because they've got so many captains. Nothing planned apart from wanting Bowen back rather sooner than later. So he's going for a triple Brighton defence, and he's got Gross. So he's got 5 Brighton players in here. Wow. I mean, fair. Like, they've definitely got good fixtures. I do really like Estepinian. It's annoying because I don't want to fill my team with too much Brighton. But Dunk, Van Heck, like literally all these guys look like good options. I like the front 3. I like the middle 3. And this would be very good if we see if Brighton had kept like 3 clean sheets before Christmas, I would probably be on this as well. In one of my teams at least. It's just the fact that, well, the thing is as well, if they didn't keep that last clean sheet against West Ham, then I would have no interest in this whatsoever. But it's annoying that the one time they keep a clean sheet is right on the overhaul, and now everyone doesn't really know what to do. I don't know, but in terms of picking one of the 3 defenders, like I feel like we're gonna have to. I really like Estepinian as a big punt. Like, he's got such a big ceiling. Dunk, I think, is the safest option, and Van Heck's obviously the cheapest option. So it depends what kind of way you want to go. For me, it would be between Dunk and Estepinian, because I don't really think we need the cheap option in Van Heck because we've got Palmer. But yeah, this could be fantastic if it works out well, and Brighton start keeping clean sheets. But again, they do literally have like the best run in the league for a good few games as well. Ben Ben's got his team in here. Assuming Haaland's going to miss the Newcastle game. Is this like definite? Like, I've seen a couple things that he might have missed training and stuff, but I don't really know anything else. Like, I've still got Haaland in my team, assuming that he was going to play against Newcastle. But I don't really know how concrete the news is that he's going to be missing it. Saka to Haaland on the 31st of January after Saka's captaincy days, yeah. Again, very, very sensible move. And Solanke to Bowen at some stage also makes sense. Ben's also got Foden. Again, kind of already spoke about Foden. Typical defence. Vicario, probably another popular option. And yeah, again, a very, very template team, a very nice team. 4.7 in the bank. So, what's your plan? Are you going to do Foden to Salah as well, Ben? I know you're here. I think that's probably the sensible move. And then maybe Gross out for someone like Son or Maddison. But again, another very good team. No, you can really, really, really see the template teams when we look at all these. Like, everyone has the same midfield, at least the same 3 midfielders, and then it's whether you've got Saka or not. FPL Fish, let's have a look at this team. This is me currently with loose plan of Kaminsky, Saka and Cunha to Vicario, Areola, Salah and Haaland. Again, another 3 at the back with Van Hecke, Van Dijk, Saliba. We've got Watkins and Cunha up top, and again the exact same midfield as everyone else. You're doing really well actually, 500th in the world and 2.5k. Fair play. Yeah, again, I don't really know how many times I can say because it's very, very similar teams. He's went Kaminsky in goal instead of Trafford, which I don't know if that means he's coming out straight away or not. Like, do you think Luton have a better clean sheet chance than Burnley? But yeah, Vicario, Areola. I would be going for Vicario. I think a lot of people lost patience with Areola, and I don't think it'd be sensible to move straight back to them. I don't know if that's maybe a captaincy cover if Bowen's not back, but we'll see. We'll look at one more team, then I'll jump back and have a look at the chat again. Jack Curbs can get Haaland, Son and Salah back in, probably for Pedro, Gross and Solanke. Like the look of Brighton's run though, so may keep Gross and lose Saka depending on form. Do feel like Bowen needs to come back in as soon as he's available. Be interested in your thoughts. So again, we've got the same midfield. Haaland will be coming back in, so again a very solid attack. And then Pickford, Porro, Saliba and Van Hecke. Porro's not as popular as I thought he would be. I'm not seeing a single team with Romero. Obviously he's not due back, but is anyone planning on bringing Romero back, or are we all just in the collective that Porro's probably the better pick? Obviously Romero would get more points consistently, but Porro's got a very, very good attacking potential. So Pedro, Gross and Solanke. So you're keeping Van Hecke as Brighton cover. I'm not sure, do Brighton have another captaincy day after AFCON? I don't think they do now. I properly think about it. So I guess that works. Haaland, Son and Salah back in. Makes sense. Does anyone get any plans for Maddison as well? Are we all kind of just... Because I think he's due back for just at the end of January. So again, about the same time as everyone else. I think I would rather have Son, personally. I don't think I would double up, especially with the amount of midfielders now. But I suppose your midfield could be what? Gross, Rodri, Palmer. Gross, Rodri, Palmer, Son and Maddison. Yeah, Romero's definitely a liability. I think that's definitely my thoughts on things. I prefer Porro. I think he plays more often. Don't have to worry about using... Like, yes, Romero will probably outscore Porro, but is it going to be worth the 50 points? when you're making like 7 transfers to take him in and out. I don't know. Like, to say Romero's not going to get suspended between now and the end of the season doesn't make much sense. So yeah, I'd be picking Porro. I think I've got Porro on my team right now. I've got Porro over a Brighton defender, but I've not really had a proper look at things. I've just kind of been looking at it over the week. Since I made that first draft video, I've just been going over things like as injuries come. Like, as I heard Trent was injured, then I put Solanke in and just left it. So I need to have a proper look tomorrow before making the final draft video tomorrow. How do you think Spurs will line up when everyone's fit in defence? Now they've got Dragusin, Romero, Van de Ven. Guessing Van de Ven's nailed as he plays the left side and can cover left back, and not sure. I think Dragusin is in as the good cover for Romero. Obviously, we've seen what happens when Spurs get a load of defenders out. So I think Dragusin's going to be there kind of as Romero's replacement. If he looks like he's about to get sent off, he'll probably make the sub. And when he does get sent off, Dragusin will probably come in. I think Van de Ven's nailed. He was fantastic when he played. I think it will be Romero and Van de Ven as the main two. And Dragusin will kind of just be there as a backup just in case. But I think he will get used a lot. Again, probably another reason. Like, you may see Romero get subbed quite a lot now. I don't really know how good Dragusin is, to be fair. But the fact that like Bayern and stuff were interested, he must be decent enough. And I know Ange is very, very good with his transfers. So I think he will be pretty decent. I don't think he'll be a starter though. But I think we could end up seeing Romero get subbed, which could affect his passing, which is something to think about as well. Like, if Romero's on a yellow, he could just get subbed off about 65 minutes, 70 minutes in, and then they bring Dragusin in. Jackla says, what am I missing? Why is everyone getting rid of Saka after 2 games? Even though the fixtures get a little harder, he can still score. I think it's just because he's not worth the price. Like, so many people have been going for Saliba over Saka at the start of the season, and it's worked out massively in terms of captaincies. Like, a lot of people probably wouldn't have started with Saka if he didn't have the 2 captaincy games. If Solanke moves to Newcastle, he's a better pick than if he was at Bournemouth. Nah. I don't think there was anything in that rumour, but he'd be competing with Isak and Wilson, and I think he'd literally just be there. Maybe I don't know. I actually don't know what the purpose of having 3 strikers would be when they only play 1. But I really don't think there was too much in that rumour. I want to see how Maddison plays when he's back. Made the mistake on Nkunku. Could easily see myself steaming on at Spurs at some point. Yeah. I know, Maddison is really, really good though, isn't he? Like, I'd really want Maddison and Son, I think, at some point, but there's so many good midfielders now that it's gonna be quite tough. Van Dijk an option? Yeah, absolutely. He looks literally like one of the most popular defenders so far. Rage Cage, don't think you got to my team, but currently I've Tony in as a differential. Think he'll be back with a bang. Yeah, I'm sure your team will come up in a couple minutes. But yeah, I do like Tony as a differential. Romero could get subbed whenever there's a yellow. Yeah, too many good midfielders to fit in both Maddison and Son. I think the template will be Salah, Son, Rodri, Palmer, Gross. Aye, which at that point, like, who did we mention? So that's Salah, Son, Rodri, Palmer, Gross. So there's no Maddison there. There's no Rice there. Obviously no Saka there. Like, I do think when you're looking at, like, Salah and Son are obviously essential. I think Rodri's essential as well. Palmer at his price is essential, and Gross is there for captaincies, but Gross is probably the one that can move about. So you'd be looking at like Gross or Saka, I think, and I personally think I'd rather have Gross because I think he scores as much. He gets like the same amount of attacking returns as Saka does, plus he's got like passing and tackles and stuff, which Saka doesn't get that often. Newcastle made massive losses. They'll have to sell to buy. Is there any rumours about Newcastle selling anyone? I don't know. I've not really kept up too much with the transfer news. Who could they actually sell? Maybe Almiron? I don't know if he'd go for too much though. I don't know. I seen a poll from a Newcastle page saying which one would you rather sell between Isak, Guimarães and Botman. I don't think they would sell any of them, but that seems to be the only way they'd make any money. Then Adam says Bowen when he's back. Yeah, that's another midfielder that most of us would be looking to get as well. So there's, again, so many midfielders. Right, let's have a look at some more teams. GG Magpie, legend. Just outside the top 1k with 31 transfers left. I've gone template. Queries are whether to use a transfer to bring in Haaland for Burnley or just to start with him. Which goalie to move on to from Kaminsky. Also think Saliba is an overrated pick, as Arsenal have been dodgy defensively. Top 1k with 31 transfers left is good. Like, that's very, very good. Well done. Bring in Haaland for Burnley or just to start with him. I think again you've got Saka starting with him. I'd just be moving Saka or Foden, like you've got onto Haaland. I think that makes the most sense. And then when Salah and Son come back, just kind of base it off form. Maybe some injuries will come about, but I think Saka and Foden are the two obvious ones to move on to Haaland. You've got 31 transfers there, so I don't think there's any reason that you need to start with Haaland. I think if you're kind of on like 27 or maybe a bit less and you're really looking to save some transfers off the start, maybe you could start with Haaland. I'm definitely debating it. I'm on 29 in both teams, and I'm tempted to do it because obviously we're talking like you want to be on 30, so those who are on 30 plus are going to be making the moves such as not having Haaland in their team off the bat, and then bringing him in later. We're obviously, like us on less than 30 transfers, have kind of been in the thing that we're going to have to miss out on a couple of these advantages, and I think having to keep Haaland off the start could be one of those. Similar to maybe going without Saka, like the majority of players are going to have Saka and lock in a transfer in 2 weeks' time to bring him out. So if you're maybe on 27, you could easily just not have Saka and prepare for the later game weeks instead. Because again, I still don't think Saka is the best option. He just is there, and he is kind of like an essential option with the amount of people that have got him and the amount of people that are going to captain him. But I think he easily could go against Saka if he really wanted to, and just captain Saliba on those days. Or Solanke. I think Solanke, or was it Solanke? No, it was Tony. Tony again, it is a bit of a differential if you wanted to go for him. Goalie to move on to from Kaminsky. Again, for me, I think Pickford's the best option, but you've got Pickford, you've got Vicario, you've got anyone that really covers a captaincy day. Wolves have one later down the line if you wanted to go for Sa. Palace and Everton, again, if you didn't want Pickford, you could go for whatever one of those two guys start. I don't know who that's going to be. Is it going to be Johnson? Is it going to be Henderson? Because I think Johnson was playing so well, but Henderson was always going to be the number one in my opinion. And I think you're kind of just be like Palace would have been looking for an excuse to drop Johnson, and I think the injury might be that. So I think you might see Henderson starting more often. Saliba an overrated pick. I do get that, but I do still think he's probably like top 2 defenders in the game, so I probably wouldn't go anywhere else. We've got Ian, Face Jabber, another legend of the channel, always submits for Q&As. He says, going with Tony over Saka for next week's cap. Again, literally, as we were just saying, I do think Tony could be very good. Again, a big punt, but would be very interesting if he started off really well. Also going with Neto as a keeper, even though he plays against Liverpool. but Bournemouth have a good run March onwards, and he's just going to stay there for the rest of the season. 19th with 20 subs. Okay. See, this one's a little bit different. Like, obviously, Foden is still a very popular pick, but not like a template pick, I don't think. Tony, a big differential. Estepinian does look like a big differential, like compared to the other Brighton defenders. I don't think he's picked as much, and then obviously Neto as well. I think if you've got 20 subs left, you do have to be looking at players that are going to stay there for the whole season. So, is Neto going to be your pick for the whole season? Maybe, but you also need to look for captaincies, so you might be better picking one of the single game day ones just so you've got a captain. Estepinian could end up getting injured. Yes, he could be very good in terms of like explosiveness and high points off the start, but he is also someone who you may need to use a transfer for later down the line. Van Heck, if he stops playing, if maybe Webster does come back and start playing, is another possible transfer. So I do think in that situation I'd go with Dunk, because he is the most nailed. Foden I do think is going to be a transfer at some point, whether that's to Salah or Son though. That makes sense. Like, these are the transfers that you do have to use. Tony, if he doesn't do as well as hoped, is that another transfer? And then boom, you've got like 5 transfers used in the first month. Is obviously something that you should be considering. Team looks good though. Like, obviously this is just basing off the fact that you've got 20 transfers left, but the team looks great. I do really like it. Again, Estepinian and Tony I think could be fantastic. 2 guys who could come out flying. Alex Healy, is this the last one? No, we've still got a couple more. I know, we've still got a lot more. Jeez, right, okay. Doty to Pedro Porro. I never actually thought about him. Has he been getting good points in Sky? Obviously he's been scoring in FPL and stuff, he looks pretty good, but I've not actually considered him whatsoever. Doty to Pedro Porro. Funds are there to bring Salah and or Son if needed. Captain's covered except for Everton, Palace and Wolves, Sheffield. Rank 2, 2.4k with 21 transfers left. So again, you're probably in a situation where you want to be having players that you're going to want to keep long season or long term. So obviously you've locked in this transfer for the Luton game in day 1, which is going to bring you, essentially you're going to be starting with 20 transfers rather than the 21. Foden again, we've got Haaland and Watkins up top. Rice, Palmer, Rodri, Gross and Foden. So are you looking to cover these captains? Again, in which case we've got Salah, Son, Porro, and then a captain for Everton and Wolves. So that's 5 transfers used before March again. And then we're looking at 16 going into March, April, May. Might be a little bit too much. So maybe you could consider like skipping the Burnley Luton. But obviously, like if you want to be making the early transfer, like if you're happy making those early transfers, then that's obviously perfectly okay. But I think you are going to want to be looking to conserve them as much as possible. Adam says we need a 1-8-1 formation. Yeah, or maybe like a 1-7-2. Make sure we have Haaland and Watkins up top. That's why I've done well this season, jumping on the likes of Gross and Bowen. Yeah, for me again, my rank's not as good as I'd like it to be right now, and I missed out on a lot. Like, I haven't had a Newcastle defender all season. I haven't had I haven't had Bowen all season. Two guys that have been absolutely massive. Mainly Trippier and Bowen. Like, I've not owned them at all, and that's been my big downfall. So Tim says Bruno could go if someone offers a big price tag. Who's the replacement in DM right now? Obviously there's Tonali. Oh no, well, is Guimarães actually playing DM? I don't know if he's playing centre mid. We don't even have a 5-3-2 formation. I know, I really hope that changes next year. That was the hope for this year, and it didn't happen. But yeah, not having a 5-3-2 is weird. Saliba's another reason I've done well, because I'm not going with Saka. I captained Saliba in the Arsenal days. Exactly. Again, something that I've not done, and that's been a big downfall of mine. I think if you were to talk the entire season of Arsenal captains, Saliba's probably outscored Saka, and like 90% of the time I went for Saka captain. And the time that when I didn't have Saka, he was popping off, and then as soon as I brought him in, he's been terrible, and I've had him since. Adam says, I've too many transfers and dilemmas in Feb to not start with Haaland, but those with transfers in hand will do that. But City have this massive gap from Newcastle, I'll just start with him. Matty says Tony's his differential as well. Yeah, he's probably one that's going to be very, very, very little owned off the bat. And if he does well, that would be humongous. Adam, have you reviewed my team? I had Van de Ven in mind. No, not yet. But again, we will eventually come to it. I'm not sure how far down yours is. FPL Spartans, good evening. I'm good, how are you? Thank you for coming. Right, let's take a look at some more, shall we? Isn't a team review, but Buongiorno Mattino says, how would you rate Raya as a keeper? Arsenal have a good run of fixtures, but somehow he seems overlooked. Good differential. I suppose. I think I'd always have in the back of my mind that Ramsdale could easily just come in for a game and then I'd be missing it. But I think when you've got someone like Saliba covering the Arsenal defence, I probably wouldn't go for Raya. I think there is just better goalkeepers that are absolutely 100% nailed and would do the same thing as Raya does. Again, when I'm looking at Sky goalies, with the lack of clean sheets this year, I'm just looking for someone who plays every game and who can pick up saves. Like, yeah. Disco Lou, we've got another team. Another person with Doty. Is this I don't know, maybe I've just missed out on this. I totally overlooked him. I've given up relying on clean sheets, actually, right on cue, with so many injuries and added time. 2 City players are placeholders, swap in Foden or Rodri or someone depending on team news. Beyond that, a little wiggle room to bring in Son, Salah and Trent. Yeah, again, we've got maybe about 4 players outside of the template here. Solanke, Haaland and Watkins. Solanke, Haaland and Watkins up front. Seems like a pretty template attack. De Bruyne in at midfield. I don't know about De Bruyne. Originally I thought, yes, I'm absolutely going to go for him. And then I realised that he probably is going to have his minutes managed. That's the word. His minutes managed quite a lot. And I think they will try and save him as much as possible for the Champions League this year. But again, he's probably one that we just wait on. Like, he could be a transfer down the line if he starts to pick up regular games. Gross, Palmer, Saka, Estepinian, Doty would be the captain, Porro and Pickford. Yeah, I like this. It looks good. Covering the captaincies. Swap in Foden or Rodri if De Bruyne doesn't play. Beyond that, yeah, this looks good, and it looks like you've got a good plan as well. 5.1 million in the bank. I like that. Christopher Lee, punt with Tony, with the money until Haaland's fit. Trafford, Saliba, Porro, Estepinian. Again, the the obvious midfield, and then the attack of Watkins, Solanke and Toney. Again, looks good. I feel like every team's the same. It's mad. And I'm looking at my own team, and it's the exact same as this as well. I've not seen a single midfielder outside of Rodri, Gross, Saka, Palmer, and who's the other one? Foden. Has there been another midfielder? I don't think we've had anyone else other than those 5. And De Bruyne, who was just shown 2 seconds ago. But yeah, another person with Porro, another person with Estepinian. 2 players that could end up with very explosive game weeks. Toney is a huge differential. Another good team. Another person with Trafford as well. I've not seen anyone with like Foster yet. No one's went for Luton or Brighton. Luton or Burnley attacker or midfielder. Probably because they're all really, really bad. But are we expecting a low scoring game? I suppose so. Right, the Scouse Guardiola. Bang on 1000th place with 28 transfers left. I've gone for Trafford and Gross for the single game days. Having 2.3 million left will allow me to do 2 straightforward transfers when Son and Salah return. We'll look at going Saka and Walker for Salah and Son. Would leave me on 26. So we've got Walker in this team, which is the first time we've seen Walker. I like this. This looks very, very solid. Again, pretty template. The usual midfield. The usual suspects in defence. Walker could be quite good. I think Walker for Salah and Son. I think I mentioned that in the differentials video when I was speaking about Walker. He could be quite good for the first like 4 or 5 games, and then you just transfer him out when Salah and Son are back. I like this. And again, 1000th place with 28 transfers is great. You're definitely doing very well. Right, Adam. We've came to Adam's team now, who is also in the chat. Kaminsky to... I want to say that, yeah, so Kaminsky to Areola, Pickford or Johnson, or Saka to Bowen or Solanke. Or Saka, Bowen, Solanke, or Van Dijk, or Watkins to Son. Saka, Bowen, Solanke, or Van Dijk, or Watkins to Salah. Gross to Hwang. Also dependent on what happens in the FA Cup. Right, let's have a look at the team. So we've got Haaland, Watkins, we've got Saka, Rodri, Gross and Palmer, Van de Ven, Dunk, Saliba, Van Dijk and Kaminsky. I like this. Did Van de Ven pick up passing that often? I've never had him, but I don't really know if he picked up a lot of passing. It was at 460th, right? So Adam's doing really well as well. Did you say how many transfers you've got? You didn't. Yeah, another good team. So you've got Kaminsky to Areola, Pickford or Johnson. So my pick there would be Pickford. I do like him. Saka to Bowen or Solanke. I would go for Bowen for the captaincies. I'm assuming this is when Bowen's back from injury. I do prefer Bowen to Solanke. But if you really want Solanke, I'd maybe just start with him over Saka, and then you can captain Saliba in those days. Saka, Bowen, Solanke or VVD. Or Watkins. I'm not really too sure what this one means. So is this alright? Okay, so this will be whether you've got. I'm gonna just assume here. So Saka, Bowen, Solanke is what this is. So let's say Bowen or VVD or Watkins to Son. I don't know about the single game days when Son comes back, but I'd maybe go for Watkins. I think actually looking at your team, I'd maybe go for Gross. Because I think Bowen, Van Dijk and Watkins are 3 players that would be very, very good season long. And then moving to Salah as well. I suppose at that point, I'd maybe do Van Dijk, because you won't be needing Van Dijk for captaincies and stuff. But at that point, like we're talking like 4 weeks down the line, we could easily have an injury in here. one of these guys, or maybe Spurs don't keep any clean sheets over the next 4 weeks, and at that point you need to go for Van de Ven to Salah, or again maybe like Brighton are back to their usual self and are very, very poor defensively, and you can go that way. Oh yeah, Spartan says you can have a 5-3-2 formation, it's a 5-4-1. Yeah, that's my bad. Adam says, I'd love Buongiorno from Torino in the Premier League, a great centre-back, smashing in Serie A this season. Never even heard of him, but he's got a cool name. So Adam says he's got 28 transfers left. Wow. So you're having a very, very good season as well. 459th. Fair play. Ishmael says they've got to scrap the overhaul, I think. It really depends. Like, I think as a whole, yeah, it probably makes sense. Like, we're now at a point where a lot of people had different teams, and now it's just basically a reset button and everyone's going to have the exact same team again. But I think when you've got maybe like 5, 6, like right now with the amount of injuries and the amount of single game days, everyone's got the same team. But if there wasn't as many injuries, and there was like, I don't know if it's better to have less or more singles, then we'd maybe have some more differentials and just a lot more different teams. Luis Bonilla says, I've got Diaby and Diaz and Cunha in my team. Ranked top 10k. I like Diaz. He's a midfielder who's definitely outside the template. Cunha as well. Cunha'd be a good pick to keep up until that single game day. Diaby, is it Diaby over Watkins, or is it just Diaby as well? Ederson or Areola? Ooh. I like Ederson shorter term. I think longer term I'd rather have Areola. I think if you're going to have Ederson for like the first 4 games and then sub him out, but whether you want to do that or not is a different question, so I'd maybe just go for Areola. Yeah, Ederson doesn't really pick up the saves that much. Start 1, Solanke, Walker, Gordon, Diaz. I'd have Solanke. I think Solanke looks good. And I think, as a general term, I don't know if Solanke will be highly owned massively off the start, but I think he does look like a pretty decent one. And for captains as well, he looks quite good. Basically, I meant any of them can come between Son and Salah if Bowson's back in time. Okay, got you. How long have we been live? 59 minutes? Wow. Might go for Douglas Luiz over Watkins in my one team. Yeah, it's a big risk, but it could work. I like Luiz. I don't think Luiz picks up like loads of tiers, but he does pick up tiers enough to the point where it could work over Watkins. I don't know how I feel about Watkins against Everton this weekend. Like, as a captaincy, I think I'd rather go elsewhere, which is why I think Douglas Luiz could be quite good. Right, let's have a look at some more teams. Chris Weaver, currently 43rd, dunked to Salah via Solanke. Saka and Gross could be Son and Bowen. Again, we've got the same 4, the same 2 up front with Watkins and Haaland, and then a very, very template defence. Another triple Brighton, which seems to be very popular as well. Again, a great team. I think when you're 43rd, you do just have to go template. That is going to be very popular. Yeah, again, very, very simple. I like it. Jolly Oak, Adebayo. Oh, so there we go. We've got our first attacker for this single game day tomorrow. About Adebayo to Haaland, piling into Brighton because YOLO. Yeah, again, looks great. I like the idea of Adebayo. He's probably one that has a higher ceiling. I think Adebayo and Foster, two good punts to go off of. Also, though, it is two people that could just end up with 2 points. So it is a bit of a gamble. 32J. Hi Bobby, thoughts on my team? Martinez hasn't been great, but has a nice fixture run. Yeah, Martinez is a good enough goalkeeper. When I had him a couple months ago, he wasn't really picking up saves that often. Then as soon as I got rid of him, he got some clean sheets and then started picking up saves. So that was just typical. Dunk, Saliba, Van Dijk, Van Heck. Again, very popular defence. Rodri, Bowen, Palmer, Saka. So again, I think you are going to have to get rid of Bowen because he is looking to be out for a couple of weeks. But again, there's loads of options in midfield you can go for. And then we've got Watkins and João Pedro. I suppose you could even just move Bowen to Haaland. Have you got enough money in there? It doesn't say. I think you will. You've got Palmer and Van Heck in there. You definitely have a lot in the bank. So yeah, Bowen has to come out because of that injury. But other than that, looks great. Again, we are really starting to see the template here. So this looks like it's our last team, and I do have a couple DMs as well which we can go through. Here's mine thoughts from Rayhan. Eventually doing Saka and Watkins to Son and Salah. So we've got Haaland, Solanke and Watkins. Another midfield of Gross, Rodri, Palmer and Saka. Estepinian, Walker, Saliba, Pickford. Solid, very solid. Gross, Estepinian. Again, Estepinian I really like. I think he could be fantastic. Walker, again a good pick. Eventually doing Saka and Watkins to Son and Salah. I think you do need to. I would be looking at having like a good replacement for Walker a couple weeks in. Obviously, you've only got 3 defenders, so you are going to want to move to a different defender at some point. Whether that's someone like Van Dijk, just make sure you've got enough money in the bank for that. But again, I think short term, Walker's a good option. Right, let's have a look at some more chat stuff. Louis Bonilla says, what do you think about Virgil and Neto? Perfectly fine. I think Van Dijk is probably going to be the most popular pick in defence for the overall, and Neto does enough. I would rather have a goalkeeper that covers captaincies, but if you've got them covered elsewhere, then I think Neto's perfectly fine. Spartan says, apologies if you've covered this earlier. What's your opinion on starting with Haaland, and also views on covering and skipping the Burnley Luton game? By the way, I'm 239th. Again, fantastic. In terms of starting with Haaland, I don't mind it. Again, I did mention this. I said if you're maybe lower on the transfer side of things, I don't see any problem with starting with him. Because I think that's where the people with more transfers are going to be using them. So I think if you're lower in the transfer side, you are really going to be missing out on 1 or 2 games. But it depends if you don't see any alternatives, then I don't see anything really wrong with it. I think we can see the lineup for the. Oh no, we can't because the Burnley Luton game's been moved. So yeah, we need to wait more news for Haaland. And covering and skipping the Burnley Luton game, again, it's really a 50-50. Again, I think your minimum going to get 4 points. So if you do cover it, the most you can miss out on is 6 points in terms of the transfer being worth it. And then if you don't cover it, the most you can miss out on is about 10 points at maximum, unless obviously there's a penalty save or something. But most people are going to go for like Trafford or Kaminsky, who max out at about 20 points, and again they'll be using a transfer, so they're gaining about 10 points. So it's really whether you think it's worth it or not. Best captain Saturday out of Rodri and Palmer. I do like Palmer. I think he might be my FPL captain this week, so he might have to be my Sky captain as well. Just added my team to the thread. Right, okay, I'll have a look at that. Rodri's nailed for 90 minutes. Palmer could be subbed. That's also a fair point. Yeah. Right, let me have a look at some DMs. Because I know we have a couple. And then we'll have a look at Jackla's team as well, who's just added it to the thread. Right. Okay, this is Ian LeBruce. It's Ian LeBruce's team from DMs. He is doing brilliantly this season. 806th in his second team, 1300th in his first. He has, again, another very template team, but we have Odegaard instead of Saka. Again, this is something I did mention in my differentials video. He's got Odegaard and Saka. I never noticed that, right. So, Odegaard and Saka. I don't know which one will be the captain there. He did actually mention something about it, so I'm going to quickly switch over because I don't want to expose my DMs. Note that Odegaard was Trent in my initial draft, and I considered Trippier as I like the flexibility of a 4-4-2. I do like Trippier. Trippier's in one of my teams right now. I think he could be quite good, coming off the back of a decent enough rest. I like this. Again, very, very template. In terms of looking at other players, it would be Odegaard. And if you watch the differential video, you'll know my views on Odegaard anyway. So yeah, looks good. Odegaard and Saka, in terms of which one to captain out of that, and the fact that you've got Saliba there as well, is interesting. I think I'd probably still be going maybe Saka. And then we've got our final team, which is from Just Jackla, who is in the chat. He says either Rice or Luton Morrison, and one of them or Saka goes for Haaland for Burnley. Who would you pick? Also thoughts on the team. Again, team looks great. Very template. We've got Rice in this one. We've got Areola in this one. Rice or Luton, and one of them. Again, in terms of it's kind of the same question again. Would you cover the game or would you skip it? In which case, I think Rice is obviously going to be fine long term. But I think if you're going to be transferring Rice out early, then you might as well go for the Luton captain. And one of them goes, or Saka goes for Haaland. I guess you'd probably be more worth it just keeping Saka at that point. I would maybe just go for the Luton guy, transfer him out for Haaland, and keep Saka to get rid of for Salah and Son. I think that makes the most sense. But yeah, I think that's basically all we've got now. Have a quick look at the chat, and then we'll look at heading. Cheers, Bobby. Still very 50-50 in tomorrow's game. Yeah, me too. I still don't really know what I'm going to do. I think at that point I will be 50-50 up until the deadline, and I will just 50-50 it and put one in my team and we'll skip it in the other team, because they are pretty similar rank anyway, so I'm not really too bothered which one's which. A lot of these depend on how many transfers we all have left. I'll probably skip tomorrow's game. Exactly. I think if you're low in the transfer, it makes sense just to skip tomorrow's game as well. If you're 30 plus transfers and you're high 30s, I definitely would be covering tomorrow's game. It just makes sense. You want to be covering as many captains as you can with that many transfers left. But I think if you're 25 and under, I would just skip it, because it's a 50-50. and it makes it easier if you just have less transfers to use. Will you get a picture of Galeno on your wall after that monster haul versus Shakhtar? I still can't believe that. If he wasn't so low and still, I'd have maybe gone there. I should do that. That was fantastic. I'm so buzzing for UCL Fantasy to come back. That's my favourite game this year. It's the only one I'm doing well in, mind you. But yeah, I think that's it, to be honest. I don't think there's really much else to go for. We've been live for an hour and 10 minutes, so if you've actually made it all the way through and rewatched this whole thing afterwards, thank you to those who have stayed the entire time. But I'd be very surprised if anyone's came back to rewatch this and stayed for the whole hour and a half. Well, hour and 10 minutes. We've got another message from Jackal. He says, if I go Rice and Saka, would I be stupid to transfer Saka for Haaland? If Rice does well. Rice is 2 mil cheaper and close to total points. Saka's been poor this year. You wouldn't be stupid to transfer Saka for Haaland. Like, Rice ticks over very nicely. Saka hasn't been in great form, as you say. I think I'd be more than happy to just move Saka on if you're happy to keep Rice. Tim says thank you for the stream. Thank you for coming, Tim. Thank you everyone for coming. I really appreciate it. I think by the looks of things went well, so this may not be the only stream we do. Could be able to do some more, which is good. Good news, because I didn't think my laptop would have been able to hear that. I don't think my laptop would have been able to last this whole time. So good stuff. Matty, thanks for coming. I would like to do an overhaul deadline stream tomorrow, but I'm working tomorrow, so I won't be able to do that. So if we do have another stream, it might be next week. We will see. But I'll have to rewatch this back myself and make sure everything went well enough. But yeah, that is going to be it. So thank you everyone for coming. We will have a normal overhaul final draft video out tomorrow before the game comes out, and that is going to be it for the overhaul videos. So again, thank you everyone for coming. It has been a great stream. Thank you everyone who sent in teams. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I will see you all tomorrow.